There's a $25 Casio that holds time better than a $15,000 Rolex. The guy wearing it slept in it, showered in it, and hasn't touched a battery in years. That's the quiet joke sitting under this entire hobby. You can drop $80,000 building a proper collection, or cover every job those watches do for a fraction of that and lose almost nothing. So I built the 11-watch collection that replaces the whole luxury shelf. Organized by role, not by price. One smart pick per job, from that $25 Casio to a quartz watch that embarrasses a tourbillon. Number 1. The Daily Beater. The Casio F91W. $25, a slim black resin case and probably the most worn wristwatch in human history. A daily beater has exactly one job. It has to survive the parts of your life you'd never risk a nice watch on. Washing the dishes, hauling boxes, chasing a toddler around the yard, falling asleep on the couch with it still strapped on. Nothing on earth does that job like the F91W. The whole watch weighs about as much as a slice of bread, so you genuinely forget it's on your wrist. The battery lasts around 7 years, which means you strap it on and basically ignore it until a president leaves office. And because it's quartz, it holds time better than mechanical watches, costing 1,000 times more. A luxury mechanical watch is doing well to stay within a couple of seconds a day. This little Casio beats that day after day for the price of a sandwich. It's been in production for more than 30 years, and Casio has barely changed the design because there's nothing left to fix. You get an alarm, a stopwatch, a backlight, the date, and a strap that shrugs off sweat and rain. The water resistance is modest, so don't take it scuba diving, but you can absolutely wear it in the shower and never think about it. Now think about what it's actually replacing. Plenty of rich guys buy beat-around watches for 4 figures and then baby them anyway. This thing costs $25 and asks nothing of you. And don't underestimate what an honest $25 watch does to your head. Once you own something you genuinely cannot hurt, that low-grade anxiety around your nicer watches starts to melt away. Casio sells these by the millions, year after year. It's been strapped to students, tradespeople, and more than a few famous wrists, and it has outlasted a dozen fashion trends that came and went. It's a real icon that costs less than lunch, and it's the honest foundation every sane collection should be built on. Is it going to turn heads at a dinner party? No, but that was never the assignment. A beater is the watch you stop thinking about, and the F91W is the best there has ever been at disappearing on your wrist. Every serious collection I actually respect has one of these sitting in a drawer, ready for the days the good watches stay home. Which is exactly where the next one comes in. Because sometimes a beater has to survive a lot more than the dishes. Number 2. The Adventure Watch. The Orient Kamasu. Around $250 to $300, and the watch I'd hand anyone who says they want one automatic that can go anywhere and do anything. Think of this as your explorer. The watch you wear hiking, traveling, kicking around a beach town. The one that has to look good but can never make you nervous. And here's the part that makes it special. The Kamasu runs an automatic movement Orient builds themselves in their own factory, which at this price is almost unheard of. It hacks so you can set it dead to the second. It hand winds, and it just runs, year after year, off nothing but the motion of your wrist. No battery, no charging, no fuss. It's rated to 200 meters, so it laughs at rain, pools, and the ocean. It has a sapphire crystal, which is the genuinely hard glass that resists scratches, on a watch that costs less than a decent pair of boots. The sunburst dial catches light beautifully, the blue and the green versions especially, and the whole thing carries a go-anywhere confidence that far pricier watches try to buy and completely miss. And let's be honest about what it's really replacing. That case shape, the bezel, the whole silhouette, it's clearly channeling the famous luxury dive watches everyone recognizes, the ones that run 5 figures and up. The Kamasu gives you that same rugged, timeless look, the same self-winding reliability, and it costs less than the sales tax on one of those. Orient has been making watches in Japan for over 70 years, and they're one of the very few brands at any price that still produce their own movements in-house. You're getting real horological substance here, not a fashion watch pretending to be tough. The day date sits cleanly at 3 o'clock, The case hugs the wrist better than the spec sheet suggests, and the bracelet it comes on is far nicer than it has any right to be at this money. Here's why it earns the adventure slot over 100 fancier options. You can beat on it without flinching. You can lend it to a friend. You can throw it in a bag for a trip and not spend the flight worrying about it. That freedom is the entire point of an adventure watch, and plenty of people chase it with a $2,000 diver they're then too scared to actually use. Every scratch becomes a tragedy. The Kamasu costs so little that the fear never enters the picture. You just wear the thing. And when you scratch it, and you will, you'll shrug it off because it owes you nothing. Next up, we leave the water entirely and go to the one watch style that was literally designed for the battlefield. Number 3, the Heritage Field Watch, the Hamilton Khaki Field King. Roughly $360 up to $580 depending on the version, and the one watch on this list with real military DNA. The Field Watch is the original tool watch. Before divers, before travel watches, soldiers needed something simple, legible, and tough enough to survive a war, and Hamilton made those watches for the American military by the hundreds of thousands. This modern Khaki Field King is the direct descendant of those pieces. Clean white numbers on a matte black dial. Big, luminous hands. The kind of watch you can read at a glance in the dark without squinting or thinking about it. What makes the King special at this price is the engine. It's a Swiss automatic with an 80-hour power reserve, which means you can take it off Friday night, leave it on the dresser all weekend, and it's still ticking and set when you grab it Monday morning. Plenty of automatic watches die after a day and a half off the wrist. This one gives you more than 3 full days. It also runs a day date, so the date and the day of the week are right there on the dial, which is genuinely useful on a watch you'd wear to an actual office. And the heritage here is not marketing fluff. Hamilton watches went to war on the wrists of American soldiers through the 1940s and beyond. And that legibility first design was born from a simple, deadly serious need. Being able to read the time instantly in mud, in rain, in the dark, with your life possibly depending on it. That DNA is still baked into the watch you can buy today. When you line it up against the military-inspired field watches from the luxury houses, watches that cost $5 or $6 grand chasing the exact same look, the Hamilton starts to feel like the obvious adult choice. Hamilton sits under the Swatch Group now, which is Swiss watchmaking's biggest powerhouse, so you're getting real Swiss engineering with real history, and you're paying a few $100 for it instead of a few thousand. This is the watch that outvalues almost everything around it. If someone wanted one do-everything, watch that dresses down with jeans and still looks sharp under a rolled-up sleeve, I'd point them straight here. But toughness comes in a few different flavors, and the next pick is built to survive things a field watch never signed up for. Number 4, the one you'll never have to think about. The Citizen Promaster Diver, Eco-Drive, somewhere between $250 and $350, and my pick when the job is pure, boring, unkillable reliability. Every other automatic on this list eventually needs winding, wearing, or a service. This one needs none of that. Eco-Drive means the watch is powered by light. Any light. Sunlight through a window, the lamp on your desk, the fluorescent tube over your kitchen sink. It charges a cell hidden inside the case, and that cell holds its charge for months in total darkness. You will never open the back of this watch to swap a battery, and it never stops to be wound. You put it on, it runs. That's the whole relationship. And this is not some delicate dress watch that happens to be solar. This is a proper 200-meter dive watch, built to the international standard that real divers actually rely on. Screw-down crown, a bezel that only turns one direction so you can safely track your air underwater. Lume you can read at depth. It's the watch I'd hand somebody who wants to buy one single watch, wear it every day for the next 15 years, and never fuss over it once. Here's the other thing nobody tells you about solar quartz. Because it's charging every time it sees light and because quartz is inherently accurate, this watch keeps better time and demands less attention than watches costing 20 times more. There's zero romance in it, and that's exactly the appeal. A lot of watches are a hobby you tinker with and worry over. This Citizen isn't that. It just does its job flawlessly for a decade while you fuss over everything else. And there's a real freedom in that. There's a specific kind of piece that comes from a watch you cannot kill and cannot forget to maintain. No winding routine, no battery anxiety, no service bills sneaking up on you 2 years later. For a lot of people, that quiet reliability is worth more than any amount of finishing or heritage or brand name. Think about what it replaces. People spend serious money on high-maintenance mechanical watches and then leave them sitting dead in a box because winding them is a chore. This Citizen just works forever in the background. It's the set-it-and-forget-it champion of the entire list. Now we've covered cheap and we've covered bulletproof. It's time to talk about a watch you actually want to sit and stare at. Number 5. The dive watch you buy because you love it. The Baltic Aquascaphe. Roughly $650 to $760 from a small French brand that came out of nowhere and embarrassed a lot of big names. The Citizen we just covered is the diver you buy with your head. The Aquascaphe is the diver you buy with your heart. It's a skin diver design, that slim, elegant 1960s shape, topped with a gorgeous domed box crystal that gives the dial a warm, old-world distortion around the edges when the light hits it. The dial options, the gilt one especially with its glossy black face and gold accents, look like they belong on a watch costing 10 times as much. Under the hood it runs a reliable Japanese automatic movement. It's rated to 200 meters, and the sapphire and the overall build quality punch far above the asking price. But the real reason to own it isn't on the spec sheet. It's that Baltic absolutely nailed the feeling. This is a micro brand, meaning a tiny independent company run by enthusiasts, and they beat the giants at their own vintage-inspired game by actually caring about proportions, about the way light rolls across the dial, about the tiny details that watch nerds obsess over and mass-market brands ignore. The Baltic story itself is worth knowing. It's a young French company that launched through crowdfunding, built by an enthusiast who wanted the vintage diver look without the vintage diver headaches, and it took off because the watches kept selling out. That skin diver design taps straight into the lineage of the legendary 1950s and 60s dive watches, the pieces that now trade for tens of thousands at auction. Baltic captured that exact spirit and made it something a normal person can actually own and actually take in the water. It's a small team who genuinely cares, and you can feel it in every detail of the watch. Owning an Aquascaphe is a little flex inside the hobby. Nobody on the street knows what it is, but every serious collector who spots it on your wrist gives you a knowing nod. That's the exact sweet spot a tool watch hits when it's done right. Capable enough to genuinely dive with, beautiful enough that you never want to take it off. Line it up against a luxury steel diver at $8,000 or $9,000, and the Baltic gives you most of the soul for a tenth of the money. If your dive slot is going to be about joy instead of pure spec sheet utility, this is the one to get. And speaking of doing one thing beautifully, the next watch has to pull off the single hardest trick in the whole collection, looking right absolutely everywhere. Number 6, the do-everything Swiss watch, the Tissot Gentleman Powermatic 80. Anywhere from about $599 to $875 and the most versatile watch I can name at this price, full stop. The hardest role to fill in any collection is the crossover. The watch that looks right with a suit and right with a t-shirt. Formal enough for a wedding, relaxed enough for a Saturday coffee run. The Gentleman does both without ever looking like it's trying. Clean 40mm steel case, a simple sunburst dial, and a proportion that just sits correctly on almost any wrist. The engine is Tissot's Powermatic 80, and that 80 is the number that earns its spot. 80 hours of power reserve, more than 3 full days from a Swiss automatic in a watch this affordable. Some versions add a silicon hairspring, which is a modern material that shrugs off magnetism. And magnetism is the invisible thing pouring off your phone, your laptop, and your speakers that slowly wrecks a mechanical watch's accuracy. On top of that, Tissot builds this with a quick change system, so you can pop the steel bracelet off and drop on a leather strap in about 10 seconds. No tools required, which basically turns one watch into 2 completely different looks. Picture your actual week for a second. Monday, you're in the office and it slides under a dress shirt cuff like it was born there. Wednesday, you throw on the leather strap for dinner. Saturday, it's on a fabric strap with a t-shirt and shorts, and it still looks completely right. One watch covering situations that would normally take 3 separate purchases. For someone building a collection on a budget, that one watch saves you the cost of 2 others. Money you can then put toward the more specialized picks further down this list. That's the entire promise of a crossover watch, delivered by a real Swiss brand for the price of a decent phone. This is the watch I recommend more than any other to someone buying their first real Swiss automatic. It comes from a brand with genuine history going back to the 1850s. It's built properly, it does more separate jobs than anything near its price, and it never once feels like a compromise you settled for. If you could only keep a single watch off this entire list, a very strong case says it should be this one right here. Alright, we are 6 deep, and the picks only get more special from here. If you're getting real value out of this, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This whole channel is about hunting down the watches that actually earn your money, the ones that punch way above their price tag, and I put lists like this out regularly. Subscribe and you won't miss the next one. Okay, number 7, and this is where the finishing gets seriously impressive. Number 7, Japanese craftsmanship, the Seiko Baby Alpinist. Around $700 to $725 in the watch that made me finally understand what people mean when they say Seiko punches above its weight. This is the compact version of Seiko's classic Alpinist, and collectors nicknamed it the Baby Alpinist because it wears smaller, right around 38 millimeters, which is close to a perfect size for a lot of wrists. But the size isn't why it's on this list, it's the dial. Seiko finishes dials at this price the way other brands finish dials that cost 3 or 4 times as much. The sunburst green version especially catches light in a way that literally stops you mid-conversation to glance down at your own wrist. The hands are cathedral style, that ornate, pointed vintage shape, and they're packed with Seiko's Lumibrite that glows for hours in the dark. Mechanically, it runs Seiko's 6R35, a modern automatic with a 70-hour power reserve. It hacks, it hand winds, and it's rated to 200 meters with a screw-down crown. So this dressy-looking watch is secretly a proper tough tool underneath. That right there is the Seiko magic. They sweat the details other brands skip, both on the dial you're admiring and deep inside the movement you'll never see, and then they sell the result for a fraction of what that level of care is genuinely worth. The Alpinist name itself goes back decades to watches Seiko originally built for Japanese mountaineers who needed something rugged and legible out in the wild. This modern baby version keeps that adventurous spirit, but wraps it in a dress watch level of finish. And that finish is the whole conversation with Seiko. The same company owns Grand Seiko, their high-end line, where that identical obsessive dial and hand finishing sells for $10,000, $20,000, even $30,000. You can feel the family resemblance in the Baby Alpinist. That same care trickled down into a watch a regular enthusiast can actually afford. When somebody asks me why enthusiasts get so obsessed with Seiko, this is the exact watch I hand them to try on. You feel the care in it the second it's on your wrist. It's the kind of quality that usually doesn't start until you're $3,000 or $4,000 deep into the luxury brands, and Seiko delivers it here for well under $1,000. It makes a lot of pricier watches look lazy by comparison. Slide it under a shirt cuff and it reads as a proper dress watch. Roll your sleeve up on a weekend hike and it's ready for that too. But if we're talking about a movement you genuinely cannot buy anywhere near this price, the next one is an outright miracle. Number 8. German engineering, the Nomos Club Campus. Around $500, and one of the only watches on the entire planet that hands you a truly in-house German movement for this kind of money. Let me explain why that phrase matters so much. Plenty of watch brands, even pricey ones, just buy their movements from a couple of big suppliers and put their own name on the case. Nomos is a different animal. They're based in Glashütte, the tiny German town that's been making serious watches for almost 180 years. And they build their movements from the ground up, right down to the escapement. The escapement is the beating heart of a mechanical watch, the part that regulates every single tick, and it's the hardest component in the entire watch to manufacture well. Almost no brand at any price makes their own. Nomos does it in their own workshop, then sells the finished watch for around $1,500, which people inside the industry find genuinely a little absurd. The Club Campus is their entry point, and it's pure Bauhaus design. Minimalist, clean, printed numerals, a crisp dial, absolutely nothing on it that doesn't need to be there. It's hand-wound, so there's a small daily ritual attached to it. You give the crown a few turns each morning and the watch comes alive, and honestly, I've grown to love that part. It's a 10-second moment that's just yours before the day gets going. There's a whole philosophy behind this too. Glashütte is Germany's answer to the famous Swiss watch valleys, a town where watchmaking is basically the local religion, and Nomos represents the modern design-forward side of it. They spent years developing their own escapement rather than just buying one off the shelf, which is the kind of stubborn, expensive decision that separates a real manufacturer from a brand that only assembles parts. So you're not just getting clean Bauhaus looks, you're getting a genuine piece of independent German horology, the sort of thing collectors usually don't touch until they're spending Lange money, which is to say tens of thousands of dollars. What you're actually buying here is manufacturing bragging rights that normally cost 5 figures. A watch nerd who clocks a Nomos on your wrist knows exactly what it is and exactly what it represents. This is the quiet value miracle of the whole list, the pick that makes people who really know movements do a double take. From German precision, we jump to a Swiss watch built around a piece of technology most brands at any price still can't touch. Number 9. The technology upgrade. The Longines Conquest 38. Roughly $1,350 to $2,500, and the watch that drags space-age materials down to a sane price. Longines is old, founded back in 1832, and it sits in that lovely sweet spot just below the big luxury names. Respected, beautifully finished, without the heavy tax you pay purely for a famous logo. The current Conquest is a sporty, elegant watch with an integrated bracelet. That seamless look where the bracelet flows straight out of the case with no visible gap, which is the exact style the 5-figure brands are charging a small fortune for right now. But the real story is inside. This Conquest uses a silicon balance spring. The balance spring is the tiny coil that regulates the whole watch, the part that decides whether it keeps good time or not, and for centuries it was made of metal. Metal reacts badly to magnetism and to temperature swings. Silicon simply doesn't. A silicon spring completely ignores magnetic fields, and remember, magnetism is everywhere in modern life now, in your phone, your laptop, the magnetic clasp on your bag. Silicon is also lighter and more precise. This is genuinely advanced watchmaking, the sort of thing that lived only inside luxury watches a few short years ago, and Longines has put it in a watch you can buy for well under $2,000. Longines also carries serious history that justifies the badge. The brand has deep roots in sports timing and early aviation, the kind of heritage the marketing-heavy microbrands simply can't buy at any price. And that integrated bracelet design is having a massive moment right now. The most hyped luxury sports watches on the planet, the ones with years-long waitlists and insane resale prices, made that exact silhouette the single most wanted look in all of watches. The Longines gives you that same design language, with a genuinely advanced movement inside, for a tiny fraction of the money and none of the waitlist. You get to enjoy the exact design everyone is fighting over on your wrist today, without begging a boutique or paying a reseller double. So you get old-world Swiss finishing, a design that looks like twice its price on the wrist, and a modern movement that shrugs off the exact stuff that ruins ordinary mechanical watches. For someone who wants their one nice watch to feel genuinely current instead of just traditional and old-fashioned, this is the pick. It's a lot of watch for the money, and it wears like something far more expensive than it actually is. Next, we stay right here in Switzerland for a watch that earned an official certificate almost nothing at its price can honestly claim. Number 10. Certified accuracy. The Certina DS Action Diver, around $700 to $885, and probably the best-kept value secret in the entire world of Swiss dive watches. Here's what makes this one genuinely special, and it's a real, official, third-party thing. You can get this watch COSC-certified. COSC is an independent Swiss institute that tests watch movements and certifies only the ones that keep time within about -4 to +6 seconds a day. It's the exact same certification the big luxury brands love to brag about on their dials, and it normally pushes a watch well up into the thousands. Certina hands it to you for under $1,000. A certified Swiss chronometer on a capable dive watch at this price barely makes sense written down on paper. And the watch wrapped around that certified movement is seriously tough. The DS in the name stands for double security, which is Certina's whole engineering philosophy of reinforced seals and shock protection built specifically to take a beating. It's rated to 300 meters, which is more water resistance than most people will ever come close to needing, built to the international dive standard, with a movement that runs 80 hours off a single full wind. So you're getting certified accuracy, a serious depth rating, and a multi-day reserve, all stacked in one watch, for the price a lot of brands charge for something with none of those things. Certina has been leaning on toughness for a very long time. The double security concept goes back decades, and the brand famously put these watches through punishing durability tests to prove the point, strapping them to expeditions and generally trying to destroy them. The modern DS Action Diver carries that same overbuilt attitude, now with an anti-magnetic hairspring on top of everything else. Stack it up against a certified diver from one of the big Swiss names, and you're looking at 3 or 4 times the price for a watch that, on paper, does the same core job. This is the value hunter's trophy watch. It doesn't have the vintage soul of the Baltic or the dial finishing of the Seiko, but on pure specification for the dollar, almost nothing on the market touches it. If you're the kind of person who reads the full spec sheet before you buy anything, top to bottom, the Certina is going to make you very, very happy. But I saved the strangest and most impressive pick for the very end. And here's the twist. It isn't mechanical at all. Number 11, the wildcard, the Citizen Promaster, around $200, and the watch that flat out breaks the rules of this entire hobby. Everything we've talked about so far has been either mechanical, all tiny gears and springs, or solar-powered quartz. This is high-accuracy quartz, and it's Citizen's absolute flagship technology. Now, quartz has a reputation for being cheap and soulless, so forget that reputation completely for a second. This movement is accurate to within 5 seconds a year. Not 5 seconds a day, not a month. A year. Sit with that number for a moment, because a Rolex is thrilled to stay within 2 seconds a day, and a $200,000 tourbillon, the most celebrated complication in all of watchmaking, still can't come anywhere close to this. Citizen engineered quartz to a level almost no other company on the planet even bothers attempting, and then they dropped it into a properly finished grown-up watch. It's also Eco-Drive, so it's powered by light, and you'll never change a battery. And it's finished to a standard that easily holds its own against mechanical watches at the same price. To the untrained eye, it just looks like a classic, elegant dress watch. To anyone who actually knows, it's one of the most quietly impressive things a person can wear. To really appreciate this, you have to understand how rare the obsession is. Only a tiny handful of brands on Earth push quartz this far, tuning the movement to cancel out temperature changes, which is the exact thing that throws normal quartz off. Citizen calls its flagship line the Citizen for a reason. This is the watch their engineers build to show off, the accuracy equivalent of a supercar's top speed. And here's the beautiful irony. Out of every watch in your collection, this humble, battery-free, light-powered quartz watch will stay the most accurate thing you own, year after year, while all those gorgeous mechanical pieces slowly drift. This is the connoisseur's punchline, and it's the perfect note to end an 11-watch collection on. You wear it precisely because it shouldn't exist at this price, and because it does something no mechanical watch, at absolutely any amount of money, can match. Wear it to a watch meetup and watch the reactions when people find out what it is. It's the clean reminder that the smartest pick in the room is almost never the most expensive one. So here's the whole point of this list, made simple. Covering every job a watch can possibly do does not take a shelf full of expensive pieces. It takes 11 smart choices, one for each role, and every single one of them is genuinely great for the money. 11 rolls, 11 watches, a complete collection for less than the price of one entry-level luxury piece. You could honestly stop at 3 or 4 of these and already have every situation in your life covered. Going the full 11 just means you never once look down at your wrist and wish you'd bought something else. Now here's what I actually want to know from you. If you could only build your entire collection around one of these rolls, which one would it be? Are you a daily beater person who just wants something reliable and thoughtless on your wrist? A tool watch diver at heart? A one perfect dress watch minimalist? A spec sheet obsessive chasing that certified movement? Tell me the single roll you'd build your whole one-watch collection around, and tell me exactly which pick you'd choose for it. I read the comments and I'm honestly curious where everyone lands on this one.